This is So What Who Cares with Lora McCarville and me, Jeff Kolaski. Join us as we explore practical insights for an impractical mind.
Thank you to everyone who reaches out and who shares feedback. And I've gotten messages.
Hey, you've gotten some good stuff coming to you.
Yeah. I really appreciate that because all of the effort we're putting into it, it does make a difference when we hear from listeners that they're listening and understanding things. And yeah, I appreciate that so much.
Yeah.
And it does make a difference if it's shared on the social media and on the, platforms in which the podcast is being ran. So thank you if you're sharing and giving feedback there. If you want to be on the podcast, which is someone we're speaking to, we have had people reach out and sometimes, and we vet like who we're going to have on and when that time comes. So if you're curious and want to be on or feel like you want to be on, like we're excited for that too. I think of that often. And
I do too.
And that's a high possibility. And when it's not, then it's not.
Then it's not.
Yeah.
So can we use that to segue into we are hopefully building a type of community through this podcast, through this interaction. I know our community, like personally, is growing. I mean, you and I are becoming closer friends. I've become friends with Nathan. And you obviously know my sweet wife, and that sort of grows. And hey, I saw this and this, and then you run into somebody out there that's, hey, you're podcasting with, so there's a community growing. And then obviously it's a digital environment, so we're growing community there, and community is important. Correct.
Okay, so the reason I think like moving into community is because we can get caught in that navel gazing and doing a lot of healing work and meditation, mindfulness practices that are all just like about the self. Even our movement practices, like all of these things become so self-centered. And I would hope that the reason we're doing this is so that it leaks into our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, local and global. So it's not so that it's just impacting the half hour that you're listening to it. And it's that, okay, so then how do I take this and live it, but also like engage with others? And it's interesting you said like friends. Is like friendship the same as community?
That's a good question.
And, I've been in conversation with my friends around this. Like, is our friendship actual community? And there are spaces that claim like community. But I had a friend who was here teaching in Omaha from Philly, and he was like, if everyone looks the same, when you look around, it's like not community. Like if everyone is wearing the same thing, same skin color, same beliefs, like are we engaged in community? Or are we segueing into a cult? Are we just engaged in ways that make us feel comfortable? So what does that mean?
So then what is community?
Yeah. And everyone has, we talked about like shared values, but it doesn't mean all our values are shared. Right. I love Bell Hooks and her teachings, specifically all about love, is an incredible book, but she teaches like to a love ethic and some principles of engagement, which is like compassion, actually I wrote down because I didn't want to forget and do any disservice. So I'm going to read them.
Okay.
Care, affection, recognition, respect, commitment, trust, and open communication.
And those are like serving as like descriptors of or like
she uses that to describe a love ethic or the understanding of love as a verb, not a feeling. And so if we start to build community around a love ethic, then we have a different way of engaging. I think like
because none of those things you just said were similar beliefs in
or
politics or similar
interests.
or same skin color or something like that. It's like, do you care about that person? What were some of the other ones?
Okay, so care, affection, recognition, respect. Respect's an interesting one.
It is,
because that how respect is shown varies from culture to culture.
yes.
Have I shared this? I was teaching, and so if I have, then I'm repeating myself, and that's okay. I was teaching at a nonprofit, Mindfulness, and one of the leaders there was two leaders. The Black man said, I get really triggered by disrespect. So when eye contact isn't made by the students, I feel really activated by that. And his coworker in that same position, an Asian woman, said, in my culture, eye contact is disrespect. So I actually feel the opposite. And so that was as a collective, as we were learning from each other, what activates us as teachers and leaders of students. It was really cool to be like, whoa. So when we say to a kid, be respectful, like, what does that even mean? Right? Like,
there's
how is that demonstrated?
Right. And what does that mean to you? And how is that ingrained in or trained to
like be interpreted?
Or that person's culture.
So it varies based on how we were brought up and our culture and upbringing. Really, religion plays into it, but I like this conversation around respect because there's a lot of feelings of disrespect. I don't know, just because you feel it, if you're being disrespected.
Right. And that is a lot. It's both on the receiver and the sender as to intentionality and reception. And if I were to say, like, what is respect? Well, it's kind of giving the benefit of the doubt that that's coming from the right place, and that and that if it felt a certain way. I'll tell a quick story. There was a guy that I work with. We're very close after many years of working together, and we were chatting one day, and I made a comment. To me, seemed perfectly, within our level of friendship. It was a slight jab kind of joke, but nothing that I felt to be disrespectful. We went about our day, and he had the respect to later come to me in private and say, hey, just thought I should let you know this. You said this. I know that I know you well enough to know that didn't come from a bad place. I didn't take it bad, but it did strike me as someone else could have, or
as disrespectful,
or as insensitive, or as inappropriate, or something like that. And I said, well, thank you for telling me. That's what I would hope. That's what I would want. Right.
On her bell hooks' list. Open communication.
And that, to me, I mean, that just strengthened our bond. I said something I didn't know, and he was willing to say, understand you probably didn't know that. We come from different backgrounds completely. And that was said. And I said, I had no intention, and I apologize for saying that. That will not be said again. And now we're closer even for that, and it wasn't come to me like, hey, MFer, like you know better than it was.
Open communication. And then we look at trust, meaning he could trust you to give you that feedback on when you said this, if I felt disrespected.
Right.
And again, like, she really works in the, I'm not going to do the whole book. I try to read it yearly, but but really think more like verb than feeling. So think, or imagine a love ethic more as action than emotion. And so if we're looking at respect, then, the obvious of like name calling
Yeah.
and yelling at each, like, talking behind each other's
Belittling
back, be
someone.
like,
Yeah.
right, there's
Yeah.
like obvious things with
Mm-hmm.
respect. But I think in community building,
Mm-hmm.
the the important part is the open communication as well,
Yeah.
so that if it is brought up, or if there is action that comes off as disrespectful,
What do we do with
how
it
do
then?
we
Right.
communicate
Mm-hmm.
with that? And I
Yeah.
can trust myself. Like, trust is such a big one
Yeah.
too. And my dad always says respect is given, trust is earned.
Mm-hmm.
Like, through time, little actions, trust is
Right.
established. So through time in this relationship, you had built-in trust.
Right. Yeah. And as we go forward, I've had to say to him, like, hey, that type of response, like, maybe initially I get irritated and I don't lash out or anything, but we know each other well enough to know that I can tell you're irritated, like, what's going
Mm-hmm.
on? Well, if I'm honest, you responding to this that way is interpreted as this. And now I know that's
Wow,
not,
this is a
I
very
know,
intimate,
I know.
unusual like, you're
I,
just, I mean,
yeah,
this is an incredible friendship you're
yeah.
demonstrating.
And I agree. And I'm
Yeah.
grateful for it. Thankfully, I have several that are like that, as adult men, and which is
Yeah, it's
unusual
awesome.
in a lot of ways. The one I'm speaking of right now is probably the most, besides being in the same city growing up, the most different upbringing of two people can have, right? And so finding that mutual respect and ability to listen to each other when we say, like, hey,
Mhm.
this is how it's interpreted, goes a long way in maintaining like a good level of a good relationship. And also, I think that kind of starts to radiate out
Mhm.
to the other people around us too.
Well, the behavior certainly would, right?
Yeah.
Like, your ability to have that conversation with your friend it would give you confidence, I imagine, to have it with another
Mm-hmm.
friend, and to live in, like, with your partner, with your
Mm-hmm.
children, where you start to have more like, wow, I have an assumption over here, this is how I felt, what did you mean by this? We're in open
Right.
communication, there's trust and respect right there.
Yeah.
And then how do we take that, community? So we go into like this idea of like having a shared value, or
Mm-hmm.
um, it's not even like a like interest, but maybe there's something we're working together for or towards. Um, how do we cultivate this? And sometimes I think, like, we don't have to think the same.
No.
Um, ex- you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. But you're kind of pointed in the same direction, maybe,
yeah, I
at
mean,
least in
like, we both,
somewhat.
like, right. And that's an interesting thing because of how our brain is wired for tribal
Mm-hmm.
belonging. Like, it's
Yeah.
wired for
Mm-hmm.
belonging, what we've run into a lot. Um, and I think I noticed it, pre social media days, when I became a mom with my daughter, and like the whole breastfeeding thing came up. It's like I was in a group, and the group, and I was planning on home birth, and so I was like, because we're all believing the same and acting the same. And then when things changed and I wasn't able to do a home birth, and then
Mm-hmm.
things changed again, there's this sense of like, either you're right or you're wrong. Either
Mm-hmm.
you're in or that you're out. Either you're a hippie mom or you're not. And it was like, okay, well, there's some circumstances that happened. One, I moved to Nebraska,
Uh-huh.
and a month before, and it doesn't even matter the
Right.
reasons why, but I wasn't able to engage in the way in which my assumed community was engaged because, and then it was like, well, now I don't belong. Do you get what I mean?
I do. And that's where you mentioned earlier, I feel like that's where it starts crossing the line into something that you might refer to as cultish.
It is a little bit culty. Then.
Because I mean, that's kind of the trope of culty behavior and culty, where you're I just heard on a podcast recently, like, when you're looking into something like, is this a cult? Is this that sort of thing, or quote unquote cult? It's like one of the things to look at is, what is the exit cost? What is not being as involved cost? Obviously, financially is one thing for some things, but how hard is it on you, on your identity, on your belonging, on your to not be a part of this? And in something like that, where you go, if I decide to go to a sterile hospital to have a child, am I no longer a part of this community? Was it only this that made us a community? Well, is that then a community?
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Do you happen to know, what does Merriam-Webster say is the definition of community?
No. Do you?
No.
Oh, I was like, no. I mean, I know some things, but I'm not at that level.
I'm just curious.
I don't know.
In the English language as you and I know it, which who knows how, I wonder what that actual definition is. Is it, does it say anything about maybe, value, or does it matter?
We should probably look it up. I mean, so maybe then we go, okay, is community different than this instinct or brain thing that happens of tribal belonging? Mm-hmm. Right? So we see it a lot on social media, like cancel culture, and you're out, or I experienced it in that moment. And so that's not community.
Right.
That's like interest.
Sure. Interest does not necessarily equal community.
And like interest doesn't necessarily mean cult.
No.
But let's say I voiced an opinion, and then those who agreed with it go on one side, and those who disagree with it go on the other side. And it's like an all or nothing. That's where we run into like, okay, well, this is a sign that we're heading towards cliques, cults, or only having a shared interest, not community.
Right.
So now I can't say like I tolerate things that are unethical as a way of continuing in community. So,
I think back to like, I think it was last episode or one of our last episodes, you even mentioned, like, when's the last time you felt in community with, somebody or anybody. And I think back to, so just yesterday, I went to a concert for the first time in quite some time. And I had so much nostalgia going back, because I remembered what it felt like when I would walk into one of those places and I would know at least the majority of the people in there. And if I wasn't friends with them, I at least knew who they were. I knew some things about them just from being in it was a community. Now, not always the most positive thing in the world, not always the most enjoyable thing in the world, but there was a community there where it's like, something was a little weird if you, that guy, that girl, whatever, weren't there. It felt a little off, or it felt like...
Or like maybe you check in on them.
Yeah. And so there was this, and it was, a style of music. And so like there's a common interest, but it was more than that. It was more of a community, it felt like. But I also, when I look at that, yes, I had some very, very close friends in that community, but there were more people in that community that weren't my friends. It was still part of a community. And so when you ask, like, friendship doesn't necessarily equal community, Possibly. I
Yeah,
mean, that's the question.
I'm just using it as like.
So, and I believe that's true, because I would consider myself in a community with some of these people that I don't even necessarily like, but it's still part of this community, this shared, it's not just the people who like this one type of music. It's people who like that music and like this scene and like this, and I could even go to different states, different countries.
Okay, but
and there's a piece of that community.
Right.
So,
and is that what we're speaking to of like belonging?
Right.
Like this community, I mean, of course there's a sense of belonging. Yeah, I don't know, Jeff. I sit with this a lot because there's been so many times in my life where I felt like I was really part of a community, but then this thing happened where I shifted or didn't fully agree, and then would get the exit thing would happen. And or where we were really working towards something, and then it evolves. So, it's not like a permanent thing. And then you kind of doubt, like, was that a community? And it was.
Right.
It just evolved, and there was, stuff that happened, and we're in a new thing. So, do you care for each other? I mean, that's a big one. Is there care? Is there communal care?
Yeah. Well, I like what you mentioned about what was her name?
Bell hooks.
Yeah, bell hooks. I liked the word recognition. Like, when I hear that word, you and I like to, we decided that we both like words.
We do.
And when I hear recognition, there's two definitions in my head. Okay. One being recognized for something, an achievement,
like an award.
Giving recognition to Jeff Kolaski for his achievements in blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
Right? The other one is recognizing, right? Oh, I know that person at this concert. I don't know them, but I recognize them. They're being recognized, where that's why it feels community, where I am not a nobody here. I may not be closest friends with them, but I'm being recognized. So to me,
like being seen.
Yeah.
A sense of being seen.
Yeah, almost. I wanted to say validated, but that's not.
It's not
right,
that.
No.
It really is like
it's being seen.
It's being seen.
Okay, so all this we've talked about, and why is this important to the message that we are putting out to the world? Why is community something that we want to spend a whole episode and possibly more?
Oh, do you need a drink of your sparkling water?
Yeah, brought to you by Liquid Death Killer Cola. It's about to be the liquid death of me.
Oh.
Just kidding.
No, I know. You see. That's the thing I do with the sarcasm. Like when you said just kidding, I was like, I understood that.
I got that.
I'm like, is he kidding? Is he going to die? Like.
I might die. Yeah, that's funny. Nikki and I, my wife, have, I tell that to them, not to you. Nikki's my wife. Yeah. We've actually said before that it's funny how a lot of times we will say the words, "That's funny," after laughing at something, which clearly is the outward expression of thinking something's funny or amusing. And then we'll go, "That's funny."
I know, like, why? I know.
It's an unnecessary thing to say.
I know. Anyway. It's like a way of wrapping it up.
Yeah, like, you're right. Put a little bow on that.
Was funny.
Yeah. That was funny. Yeah, and now you'll recognize that. If you don't already, you'll hear that every time someone says it, and it'll drive you nuts.
Yeah, I love that.
Yep. Anyway.
Okay, so why community?
Yeah. Why are we talking about
Well, we're in this, like, understanding that isolation and loneliness has never been more of a mental health crisis than it is now. That people are feeling extremely isolated and extremely alone. There's like a lack of community. Of like, I don't want to use like epidemic proportions, but people, this is what they're saying. They are using that language, and a lot of people, like, if we look at, we're just looking at this country, and population spread and how policies have created a lack of community, or lacks or changes of communities, people leaving churches. I think, we go into the internet. There's a lot of reasons, but then we have this like whole thing of like the human experience, and we are meant to be together. We are meant to be in connection. And so, I would hate that we're talking about all of these ways of humaning and how to work with our experience of being a human, and then we just think that's it.
It's something where I could, or a person could, find our podcast, or that, whether it's ours or someone else's like it, or some, there is no one else like it. There's nothing else like it. Don't kid yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, I'm sorry. You could find this on your own. You could only listen to it in your car. You could never talk about it to any of your friends. You could do the work. You do all the hard work.
Do the work of being a human, and it never ends.
Yeah. And that in and of itself could be isolating. So it's I guess my point is, it's important when you're doing these things to have some semblance of community.
I mean, if you're practicing meditation, mindfulness, and doing some of these practices, then typically before this internet and podcasts and stuff, people were learning in community, and they were sitting with teachers, and they were serving each other food, and they were breaking bread, and they were having conversation. They were taking care of each other. And if someone was sick, they were bringing them soup. There was communal practices, just by the nature of not having internet, social media, and the way of learning, so I think, and of course you could listen and you could listen to the whole podcast, never mention or say anything, and if it gets inside your heart and there's some shifting that happens, then that does leak into your homes, and it still is effective. I want us to consider making more effort in, like, if we're building resiliency for the difficult conversation like you had with your friend, where like there was feedback and like shared and open communication and trust, and that there's got to be some resiliency in our system to be with each other. If we're not in, and what I see in myself, I can speak to myself, is that was something I'm getting better at, but really struggled with, where it was like, oh, you don't fully agree with me, then you're out.
How do I sit with that?
And so now have been working to be more of like, how do I invoke curiosity and connection in conversation, and practice a sense of communal care. Again, it's not at all saying I'm allowing harmful behavior. Like, I still am I'm not saying that. But there are things that activate me that people believe or say that maybe require me to have a little more oomph in my body to be like, let me, can I have this difficult conversation with you? Let me learn more, and then let me share with you my perspective. And maybe there's something where we can move the needle towards a love ethic, because certainly where I tend to not agree with people is where there's no, I mean, I can't even say that, because sometimes I'm just don't agree with people, and they still have a love ethic. On the subtle, everything's in a scale.
Sure. Yeah.
Not the extremist. I'm not speaking to that. I'm speaking more to like this middle place of having some resiliency in my own being. training my own mind, body, so that I can have difficult conversation.
Right. And sit with a level of, obviously, to reiterate, you're talking about a scale, not to sit with every type of
bigot, racist,
right. You're not. I'm just going to sit with those
policy
things.
making decision. Like, I'm not down.
Yeah, and understanding that there's going to be fluctuations in things like, even like we already mentioned, how a person shows respect. Mm-hmm. Just because you receive it differently than I do doesn't necessarily mean that either of us are wrong, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a difference there, and it can go deeper and all that too. Do you feel that? Are you familiar with breaking the fourth wall? Mm-hmm. So, like in a movie, they'll look at the camera and they'll like talk to the audience. I feel like this is a fun arena to do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That our listeners are not just a fly on the wall and watching Lora and Jeff.
I know. It's like I want to call in my friend Rachel and be like, Danielle, remember, and like call in people and be like,
that's exactly right. Yeah. I want to open this up to, we have viewers, we have listeners. I see those numbers. Mm-hmm. And so it's being listened to. And I don't want it to just be listening to Jeff and Lora talk. So when we talk about the thing that excites me about something like this is, and the reason the last several weeks, month and a half, we've been asking people to
engage with us. Yeah.
Not just give us a thumbs up. That's wonderful. But also send us your questions. Send us something that you want to talk about. Like Lora said at the top, maybe join us. Mm-hmm. Like, let's create a little bit of a community, not a cult.
Yeah.
The So What, Who Cares cult. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So there is the other thing that happens, which is we're isolated by design.
Yeah.
And we're exhausted by design.
By design.
By, let's just say, by policy and decisions being made that not having a living wage.
Yeah.
We can just use that. So that if you don't have a living wage, then you're exhausted and it lessens our ability to do the engaging thing, right? Mm-hmm. If we're surviving, if we're in survival, you're not thinking you don't have the resource, the energy just to engage in communal care.
Yeah.
Right. So, now
if you want to go into the psychology side, you're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If your base needs aren't met, you're not going to focus on things like
enlightenment is the top
or
one.
Entertainment.
There's some debate around that too. It's so interesting, because I've never felt more community than when in environments of being with people who are the working poor and like working with, in my own experiences too of, so there's some I mean, I'd love to bring in like our friends who are sociology majors or educators and philosophers and stuff. But with that being said, like, I think like even us being like, engage with us. Mm-hmm. Like, I really want to honor like how much effort that now takes.
Yeah, that's true.
And it didn't used to take that kind of effort. Right? Because our attention is so much shorter and it's like over there, over there, over there. And so many times I've heard like, I'll run into someone who's like, I love your podcast. I keep meaning to leave a comment or reach out to you. But it's like, well, there's not the same resource of time.
Yes. And I think that's what's really blows my mind because, and I want to speak to that, also back up a little bit and say, isn't it interesting how the whole world is connected and we're even less connected as less communal as a people? And also thinking about, in the early days of the internet or something like that, how you could sort of get into something and really kind of focus on it and really kind of, or maybe not even just the internet. That was just when I was young was the, beginning of like when the internet was more widely available to the general public, right?
Okay.
And so I'm thinking about things like you could research something and like really look into it, and it kept your attention. There wasn't the constant flow of stuff like it is now, like what you were just speaking to. So that resource of time that you were saying, it didn't feel as uncomfortable as it's feeling now to me at 40. And then as the younger generations get it, they're even less used to spending real time on something. So yes, with us trying to create community, because to me, when you say it takes a lot of effort to do that, well, it doesn't in the zoomed out, like it doesn't. But when you go to reality, it is hitting the thing. The link to go to the thing.
Oh my gosh, we're almost like back at full circle.
I know.
Mindfulness.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what is our present moment awareness?
Right.
And how are we, because mindfulness is present moment awareness. And how mindful are we really?
Mm-hmm.
What is all of this like regulation? So I need to be regulated all the time. I don't really get down with that, as you know. Like, so what is this thing? And are we really then practicing mindfulness if we're not able to be a bit in the present moment or intentional? That comes into play too. Again, this is not to like get people to like engage with us. It's more of like, how are we taking this stuff we're learning and unpacking and figuring out about the human thing and moving it into impact, and not just impact on self, but to really collective care. Like, how well are we taking care of each other?
Right.
And that's and there is room for that.
There is.